Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, the podcast where we are going to cover a data breach rather infamous in the ethical hacking community and the unethical hacking community. This was not some major credit card or healthcare provider data breach, but it demonstrated the importance of encryption and why you should take passwords seriously, both as a user and as a website. The passwords that were leaked from this breach are still in use to perform dictionary password attacks to this day because it's easy to find and has a large list of common passwords. This list even comes with Kali Linux, a distribution of Linux that ethical hackers, unethical hackers, or cyber defense people use due to the sheer amount of cybersecurity tools it comes with, including multiple password crackers like John the Ripper, Hydra, and Hashcat. In fact, I'm even going to link the list in my sources in the paste bin. It's public knowledge at this point, and if your password's on this list, you should change it immediately. Well, the best time to change it would have been 10 years ago, and the second best time is now, so go do that. This is the legend of the RockYou data breach. If you were not on social media in 2005, kind of like my younger sister who was born that year, you may be asking, Chloe, what is RockYou? RockYou was a company that developed widgets for MySpace and also implemented some applications in Facebook. In 2014, they actually switched gears and would distribute classic video games and then filed for bankruptcy in 2017. So they actually lasted a lot longer than I initially assumed, but this breach took place in 2009, so the video game thing isn't relevant. I just thought it was cool because I like classic video games and abandonware. At the time, it just allowed you to spice up your MySpace page with cool little colors, slideshows, and other stuff to make your profile look more unique. So what exactly happened? A classic method of hacking known as an SQL injection happened. SQL is a programming language that allows you to interact with databases. It's actually quite easy to learn, and if you want to get into IT, I think it's one of the most useful languages to learn. Anyways, websites have databases running behind the scenes, so when you enter a password, the site can check the database to make sure that it's you. Passwords in databases today should be hashed or made unreadable by a one-way algorithm that can't be undone, even if it's uncovered. Even if a hacker gets into a database, they can't get your password unless they know what your password looks like when it's hashed by that specific algorithm. We'll touch more on this later. Back to SQL. An SQL injection is when an attacker writes their own SQL code and submits it to the website via a text field. There's quite a few methods to perform an SQL injection, but you could use it to mess with the database by deleting everything, which is usually backed up, so that's not exactly a huge threat, or by simply displaying the contents of a database, which is a much larger threat. So we can potentially upload SQL code into a website to display all the tables in the database. Well, surely RockYou used a hashing algorithm so that even if the data was exposed, it couldn't be easily cracked, right? Right? Well, they didn't. The passwords were stored in clear text, completely unobstructed for anyone to look at, so long they knew how to perform an SQL injection. This particular vulnerability in RockYou's database had been documented for 10 years, and security firm Imperva even told RockYou that this is a serious vulnerability that needs to be patched immediately. Alas, some users' data had already been compromised. Before RockYou could act to fix the vulnerability, a hacker claimed they'd already gotten access to a full database of unencrypted passwords, and posted some of them as proof. In the meantime, RockYou shut down the website to prevent further attacks, but that was not enough to stop 32 million user accounts and passwords from being leaked onto the internet by the same hacker. And very soon, all the leaked passwords were dumped into a text file that acts as a giant password list for a password cracking software to try. All came from humans. This list comes with many password cracking tools by default, and is actually pretty interesting to look at. Something about seeing dumb little passwords people thought were so secret and it being like, their name or a sport, or just password or let me in. Yeah, that was a real clever one. Storing passwords in the clear was not the only questionable way passwords were handled at RockYou. RockYou only had a 5-character minimum and no other password requirements. Could just be a 5-letter word, kind of like Wordle. You didn't need to have any numbers, capital letters, zodiac signs, blood types, special characters, none of the stuff modern websites will ask you to do today. Just 5 characters. Even if you made the most secure password ever, that didn't matter because it was in the clear now, but because of these policies, people just made insecure passwords by default. And this is what makes this list great to use against people who may not know about password security. But here's the kicker and something that puts users at serious risk. RockYou passwords would be the same as your email password. When signing up for a RockYou account, you simply just used your normal email information. This is a huge security breach since email was basically the one single entry point to every password you ever had. Think about it. If you can log into someone's email, you can reset their password for anything they've signed up for. And the trend of reusing old passwords then was worse than it is today. I know you probably reuse passwords, and you know you probably shouldn't. Your RockYou password could be changed, but let's face it, this is 2009 and no one did that. However, after this breach, if you didn't change your password, you could easily lose access to everything, especially since it was not uncommon to have your password reset by email, and in fact, that's still common today, although the methods have changed a bit. RockYou naturally did not want to admit to this breach because, frankly, it was embarrassing. They tried to say it only affected older applications, but no, it was everyone. 10 days after the breach, RockYou finally admitted to its users what had happened, and given the severity of what had happened, the appropriate response would have been to immediately reset everyone's passwords and have them change them. It was only encouraged to change your password, not required. RockYou did temporarily shut down to prevent further attacks, and it tightened up its security, but the damage has already been done, as these passwords will never be removed from the internet and are used by hackers, ethical and unethical, to this very day. Passwords from this breach are well known and used for hacking, both legal and illegal. It was the biggest, most extensive password list at the time and is a goldmine for hackers. Although it has since been surpassed in sheer number of passwords. There was even a RockYou 2021 with significantly more passwords in it. If you're not one to create very secure passwords, which I understand but is a topic for another episode, I would at least check the RockYou list to make sure yours isn't there. I provided a link to the list in my sources via Kaggle, a website where data enthusiasts publish various databases to mess around with, but this is just a text file, so you don't need any advanced software to open it. Notepad will do. Even if you know your password isn't on the list, it's still very interesting to look at and see what real people used for their passwords. Thank you to TechCrunch, VentureBeat, HelpNet Security, and Computer World for information on this breach, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime. My name is Chloe Tonis, and until next time, change your password and stay secure.